So, what do you think of this Macworld now with Apple announcing that they're not going to be here anymore?
I'm not coming back, but mainly that's just because Expo is a giant hassle. You know, I don't have the time to put on a booth every year. These guys did most of the work. This year, they pretty much put the booth together for me, but even so, it took a lot of my time and resources, and I'd really rather be programming and making the program better, you know, for my customers than now, doing this.
Some of the last questions I really have to ask you is, how does it feel knowing that your software has basically been a paradigm shift for the way applications are made on the Mac? So many applications now are mimicking the kind of style of actually having a contextual object that's represented inside of a window frame that was directly taken from the ideas of your software.
Well, everybody builds everybody else. I mean, I certainly don't claim to have invented that, and to the extent to which I helped popularize it, you know, that's very flattering. Most of the credit for the look and feel and interaction of the app, you know, goes to Mike Mattis, who was my original partner in the company, and now is one of like 9 user interface designers for Apple. And so, you know, he's a prodigy, and he really blew it out of the park with this app. And you know, I was really thankful to work with him. But nobody just does this stuff out of the blue. There's been a lot of historical precedents, and it's a matter of sort of looking at them and saying what's good and what's bad. And I think what we really did right is we didn't add physical stuff that doesn't matter, that doesn't affect the way people interact with it. We didn't say, let's make these look like, you know, Space Invaders, because Space Invaders doesn't make sense for books, right? We said, let's make books look like books, because that way people can see books and say, oh, I instantly get that that's a book on my shelf. And people really, really, really responded to that. And I think that's the important thing to remember is you don't add flash for flash's sake. You don't add sparkle and zoo and woo and transparency and all this, you know, like crap that's in Windows Vista that doesn't bring anything. It doesn't enhance the experience because there's no solid unifying metaphor for why you're doing it. You're just saying, this could be transparent, so let's go ahead and do that. And you're like, well, why did you do it? It doesn't help my, you know. So that was the thing is we really learned that if you're adding like this kind of graphical spice, it should be something that the user understands at a very primal level and makes your product that much easier to just identify. You say, bam. You know, one of the best examples of that, I think it's GarageBand, and it might have been Logic Pro. I'm not sure which it is. But one of Apple's apps, and their big thing is like on the sides they have these 2 wood bars on the sides of the window, so it looks like a mixing app.
That's
mixing board.
That's a GarageBand right there.
And it's so perfect because it's very subtle. It's not like tons of like, they're not like, we did everything in wood and rendered wood, and they just, these 2 little things, but you look at it and everyone just knows it from movies and whatever. They just instantly go, oh, that's a mixing board. I know what those do. And so you get this great context flash, and that's what good user interface is about. It's just, you look at something and you already just know what it does. You say, oh, I know, I can tell you what that does, just glance at it. That's what I think it's all about.
What's your view back of like when they had the NDA on the iPhone and stuff like that, like when they were still doing that for software development? Were there any issues with it when you thought?
I mean, I thought it was pretty lame. I just didn't develop for it back then because I was busy getting, you know, the Luscious Library 2 all fixed up. So I didn't get affected by it as much. You know, there's a couple times it bit me that I wanted to ask a question and I couldn't because there's actually some internal mailing lists inside Apple, but we weren't allowed to talk on those either. So there was just nothing for us. And we were like, okay.
That's gotta suck.
But, you know, but they set it up, and, you know, and I understand, being a software developer myself, I understand that, you know, people have limitations in terms of how many support people they have and how long it takes to do something. And besides lifting the NDA, they've also provided a forum for iPhone developers to talk to each other officially on Apple's site. And this is the first time they've done this, to my knowledge, they've made it at least this transparent, where they're just like, welcome to the iPhone site, and by the way, here's the forum you can ask questions about us too, and other iPhone developers will try to answer you. And so they kind of, you know, they went a lot farther than we were even asking for. We were like, could you lift the NDA? And they're like, yeah, we're not going to lift the NDA, but we've also set this whole forum so you guys can talk amongst yourself in one place that's officially sanctioned that we will, you know, we'll be there and we'll help you out. And yeah, I mean, the results speak for themselves. There's like 40,000 apps or something now. You know, it's crazy. It's nuts. So
now the last question I have to ask is, with Snow Leopard coming out, and the capabilities of using something like OpenCL to process information and whatnot, are there any future plans of somehow using that, or even using the video card systems to provide some sort of like, instead of just having like a 2D flat image of seeing your bookshelf, having like some sort of like 3D walk space. You actually have like a library you can actually walk through of your actual book library collections or objects.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we think about this kind of interfaces and we kind of think they'd be cool, but then a lot of times when you do them, they're really a lot more trouble than just scrolling up and down in the list. Like if you think about how long it takes you to walk to a particular book in a library as opposed to just scroll to it, it's a lot more, right? And there's more I can do with 3D, but again, I'm not a 3D artist, and so you got to be very careful when you're designing an interface to only do something, like you need a level of art, and the more reality introduced, the more art you've got to have. You need to start getting animators and start understanding the tricks of animation if you're going to start really modeling things. So it's probably beyond my ability, not technically, but just because I don't have any experience doing 3D game design or anything like that I would need. The more exciting thing for me about it is that they've made it so easy to use all the processors that I can potentially do cool things with the multiprocessors that would have been harder. And we use the hardware just to its max right now. With the rendering we do, as you scroll, we load covers in a background thread, in several background threads. Simultaneously, we're loading the covers, and we're also rendering them in these background threads. As you're scrolling, rendering in several threads at once on several CPUs at once. And like if you're using the eyesight and you're scanning stuff in the internal eyesight, it's actually doing all that processing using the vector processor already. It's all completely vectorized. And so that sort of thing, obviously, it's going to translate to us doing that even more efficiently. We can use either OpenCL or Grand Central to do the something like the barcode scanning, and you burn even less CPU. And what it's really about nowadays is sort of like not just can you do something, but can you do it in a very efficient way. And like one of the things I'm very proud of with the current barcode scanning algorithm for the camera is that it at idle it only burns something like 8% of CPU. So you don't just sit there on your laptop running it for 2 minutes and it's burning 100%, so that your laptop's on fire and you have no batteries and everything. We had to get that down. It wasn't just a matter of can we do it computationally, it was can we do it and not just eat the person's machine alive. And so I'm excited to get that down to like 1% CPU. And I mean, so, because when you get to that, you can think about, oh, maybe we just leave it up. Maybe there is no, put it, pop it up. Right now, you have to have that stupid button where you say, show me the camera, put it away, just so you don't burn the 10%. But if we can get down to almost nothing, you just have it there and just walk by a computer and be like, hey, computer, here's a book, boop, and not even think about it. And so that's the kind of thing I think about for the future.
Well, thank you very much for talking with me, Will. Thank you for explaining your product so well.
Thanks.
Have a very good day and enjoy Macworld.
Thanks.